Hey guys, I'm here and I'm going to show you how to solo over Limbo Jazz. Limbo Jazz is a very happy major sounding tune, and we're in the key of concert A flat. The easiest thing to do on this tune is to stick to a scale and find a scale that works for a majority of these notes. Using iRoll Pro, I can click on a measure and I can get some chords to pop up depending on my instrument. If you haven't already, you need to go into the preferences of the program and choose your instrument that you use. Your transposing instrument will greatly change what you're looking at and seeing on the screen. So you don't actually have to move the key down here. It should still be in A flat. I have a couple of extra things that are in here like Latin, Cuba, cha-cha-cha. So it's in here in the style of Latin, Cuba, cha-cha-cha. And I also have the tempo set at 160. That's how fast it is in the tune. This song is very much a major happy sounding song. We have A flat. There's no indication of a sixth or a seventh or a nine. It's just A flat. Then we have E flat 7. Then we have E flat 9. And E flat 9 is just an E flat 7 chord, or the dominant 7 chord with the second or the 9 at the top. Then we go to the A flat. Then we have A flat 7. Then we have this fun stuff right here. This is a nice chord, A flat 7, flat 9. Then D flat, minor. That's the whole song. And if you couldn't tell already, this marking measure 21 to this part 36 is basically the exact same down here. The only difference is that in the music, the flat 9 is not written out here, and this part is a 7 where this is a 9. Honestly, it sounds identical, so don't get hung up on this being two different things. And to be honest, it's actually really good that it's really long, because that way you can practice this and repeat it. So we want to increase our repeats many times, so that way it'll just play over and over and over. If you don't have your instrument and you just want to get used to how the song sounds, head to the mixer and you choose on your piano, bass, drums. It's just going to be set up like this, and your volume levels. Mine are low because I'm recording. Another thing that helps is the count in. So usually 2 measures is good for most people. I leave mine to automatic and it will adjust, but 2 measures is good, and that way you have time to get your instrument ready before you play. So we press play and we can listen. 1, 2, here we go. And I'm going to stop it there because you've already listened to this before. This is really helpful, right? So the thing is, what do we do about notes to play? The first thing I'm going to tell you is that there is one scale to rule them all, and that is the amp scale. The amp scale right over here is a scale that will make things a lot easier for you. This isn't an official jazz scale, but the amp scale is something that's going to make playing in major keys a lot simpler. We've talked about this in class, and basically it's a relative of the blues scale. The numbers for the scale are here. 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 5, flat 6, 6, 1, and it sounds like this. It has a nice major sound to it. That's why it has the word major in it. It's built off of a pentatonic scale, a 5-note scale. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. It's a folk tone scale as well. And I'm just adding in the flat 3 and the flat 6 to this scale by having half-step intervals from 2 to 3 and 5 to 6. These flat numbers in here, these half steps in here, and bring some nice jazzy sounds to an otherwise very vanilla scale with no rub in it at all. There's no fourth, there's no 7. So is also, most wind chimes use this pentatonic style. So it's very pleasing. So that way, when we add the flat 3, it already sounds bluesy that way. And I'm just working down the scale. Flat 3, 2, 1, 6, 1. And I could also work up using 5, flat 6, 6, 1 as a little lick. Those half steps are big and they're going to help out a lot. So you can see the A flat amp scale in your instrument's key for the key of A flat. So this is concert key, E flat instruments, so alto and bari. B flat instruments would be tenor sax and trumpet, and bass C would be trombones. So I know it's an amp scale and an unfamiliar key, so practice it, get to know it. I'll include this PDF and a link on the classroom page, that way you can have it. Let's head back over here. So this tune is going to be just a little bit tricky, okay? And the reason I say that is because now that you have a great scale, you have half the recipe. I'll show you what I mean. Let me fix the tempo. And I'm going to go ahead and start soloing just with the notes of the amp scale. But I'm going to work up and down the scale. There. So I made a mistake. I played a D flat in there, but other than that, I was just working note to note. What that would look like over here is just moving one note in sequence in the scale. And if I went down, I just went a note back. You'll notice that it actually works really well to do this. I didn't have any skips. I didn't do anything. No skips, and you don't really have to think about skips. It's better to think about it as a fluid scale, and these are all the steps in the scale, and that's why it sounds nice going up and down. And you can figure out little ways and figure out little patterns. Sorry. So you can come up with little ideas and variations based on the notes of that scale. But that's not all of it. To be honest, if I were to solo with this and I had no knowledge of the amp scale, I would just look at the root notes and the chords that show up. So I'm going to bring this chord scales cheat thing right here, and I'm going to play the tune, and you're going to see as the song goes along, chords will populate. So obviously A flat, there we go. We have E flat 7. I'm going to stop it there. So over here, we can see clearly that we have our chord in block form, then our scale, and it's a suggestion of what scale to play for that chord of the moment. You'll notice that a lot of these chords have notes in common. For instance, the A flat scale has 4 flats. The E flat dominant 7 scale has 1, 2, 3, 4 flats. So there's a reason why it works and why it flows. This is a good thing to have in the back of your pocket, mainly for just this chord. And the reason I say that is because I want you to think about target notes. We talked about this in class, and this is something that should one day become automatic, where you don't have to think about it. Before I explain any more, I'm going to play a solo, and I'm going to use the amp scale, and only the notes of the amp scale. I'm going to try really hard, and I'm going to focus on target notes, meaning once I have a new chord or I know what chord's coming up next, I'm going to hit a note that is part of this chord. Okay, I have to edit that out. I'm going to do an improvisation now, and I'm going to focus on just the chord tones. This is going to mean that I'm actually not going to use notes from the amp scale. I'm just going to be using primarily A flat major. And when I have E flat 7, I'm using the keys or the notes of A flat. It just works that way. There are a couple times where I have to go in and out. Like if I wanted to play this flat 9, it's out. If I want to play this D flat minor, this is out of the normal key, but it's okay. So this time I'm just going to focus on goal tones, looking for target notes for each measure. That way everything sounds like it flows and that it's working together. That note did not fit. Did you hear how it sounded terrible? Okay, so I goofed up. It's fine. I'm just doing live improvisation. That's fine. It's about how you resolve the wrong notes. So I pointed it out. If I didn't, maybe you would have noticed like, oh, that one didn't really fit. It's because the note I played at that time did not match the chord of the moment whatsoever. So the successful way to solo on this song is to map out and think about notes that fit. So I'm going to use a drawing tool, and forgive me for the terrible drawing because it's hard to do this with a cursor and not type it. So knowing that I am here on an A flat, I want to start off with a C. So C is my target note here. And now I want to go to this measure, and what is the note that is closest to C in this chord? It's probably going to be a D flat or a B flat. Actually, D flat is the closest note. So I'm going to choose D flat. Here we go. So this is D flat, my target note there. And now I want to move. I don't want D flat to be the same. I'm going to choose, well, first I'm going to double check. Okay. I see a B flat there, so I'm going to use B flat. And I know in class I've talked about which notes are strongest, which are 3 and 7, but for now we're going to ignore that. Now here we are on A flat. We were just on B flat, so can we find a note that's close to B flat for this A flat 7? And it's going to be either A flat or C. Why don't we just hit an A flat, and that way it'll sound like it has resolved. So A flat. Okay, we're going to stop there, and I'm going to focus on playing C for this first measure, D flat for the third measure, B flat, and then A flat. If I'm using notes of the scale, this is 3, 4, 2, 1. If I'm thinking about in relation to each chord, this is the third of A flat. This is the flat 7. This is the 5th. This is 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and play it with the backing track, and I'm going to loop this section. And I want to see how it sounds just focusing on this part. Oops. Add in some more of those notes from the blue or the amp scale. So I've played it a couple of times through and tried to do different things different times. What you'll notice is that by having target notes for each chord, having target notes for each measure when I have those chords will naturally create a melodic solo because they're all related. If I were to just wing it, I might come up with something different, but the fact that I've put this map ahead of me on the page that I know exactly what I'm going to be doing, then it makes soloing a bit easier. I know that I need to be on C for the A flat, D flat for the E flat 7, and B flat for the E flat, then A flat for the A flat. I could just keep going and going and going and going. So now let's look at some of these notes that are a little bit funny. So here on the A flat 7, we have this dominant 7, which is a G flat, concert G flat. So it is not in our amp scale. But that's okay, because we don't need that note. Even that F, or the 6 of the amp scale, 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 5, flat 6, 6. And that flat 3 sounds great on this. Another thing that's interesting is this flat 9. So we can tackle 6 right here, which would be F. It's not in key, but we could still write it in. So I'm going to tackle actually the C flat, which is our flat 3. That's going to be my target note here. And in this measure, then we have our flat 9 is going to be a B double flat, which is actually an A natural, but it's okay. It's B double flat. Then we have a D flat chord, and I want to make sure I hit the third of that chord, which is an F. And I want to do something different. I'm going to hit this C flat, sorry, to just fix that into a C flat right there. So now my notes are moving around a bit more. Sorry. Then it makes more sense to from a C flat to go up to a C. And I'm going to go to an E flat. And that way I have some strong resolution to an A flat. So now my chords are going to be moving in a more interesting way. I'm going to highlight this area. Here we go. C flat. Okay, I don't like that move so much, but I'm going to try to work it in. Try one more time to see if I can make it work. Haha, I changed my line, I like it better. There we go. Okay. Sorry for the boop. So I had to find creative ways to make this line work. It ended up being something different while I was playing, and I said, ooh, I like that better. But I could actually find a way to make all these notes work. It takes some time and thought and practice. Now, there are times where I'm going to be leaving the amp scale, and that's okay. But there are reasons for doing it in certain spots, like the E flat 7, because I have that G and the D flat, which are not in the scale. If I was thinking about the key of A flat, sorry, that would be the 4 and the 7. I'm going to want to emphasize the 3 and the 7 in this chord, so it's important to think about your dominant to tonic resolution, your 5-to-1 resolution. So these are the tactics that I have to share with you for soloing over Limbo Jazz. Finding target notes like this, taking some time using iRow Pro to find notes that you want to use, and then record and write them down on a piece of paper, and then practice it, see how it feels, see how it sounds, and then make sure that you are keeping this close by, the amp scale and the key of concert A flat major. I hope this has been useful to you. Happy practicing.